So welcome. This is our first roundtable at FEBRABAN Tech, and I'm still getting used to using the microphone, so I'm very happy. So we are going to talk about the transforming impact of AI that has socioeconomical, legal, politics, and regulatory impacts of long range in that we must address. Even if technology is for hard prediction, due to the accelerated level of development. I'm going to take my seat before I call our guests. There's still a lot to talk to ensure that AI is an opportunity, one of a kind, to have social economical growth. The benefits can only be reached if AI is developed and implemented in a responsible and inclusive way. So we've been talking about that since last year. So for this talk, how to explore the best potential of AI to promote socioeconomical impact and to reduce inequalities, it's my pleasure and honor to call my dear friend, our guest of honor, who's a classic, Alexandre Del Rey, founder of H2 AI. So Alexandre, welcome. Please come on stage. Please take your seat. I would like to call Carla Lopes de Moraes, IT Senior Head of Investment Accounts at First. Carla, welcome.
Uau, que fã-clube, hein?
Oh, you have your own fan base.
Convido também a Gabriela.
I would like to call Gabriela Tourinho, Head of Artificial Intelligence, BTG Pactual. Welcome, Gabriela.
E Glauco Arbix.
And Glauco Arbix, full professor of sociology at the University of São Paulo.
Do Departamento de Sociologia da USP. Se você quiser sentar aqui, melhor. Estamos todos aqui?
Okay. We still have Rafael. I would like to call Rafael Zanata, who is the coordinator of Data Privacy Brazil. Welcome, Rafael.
Bem, agradeço a todos vocês.
So thank you all for joining us. We have our full table. It's not always like that. So I think our debate is going to be very rich about the socioeconomical impact of AI. Well, in our description talks about socioeconomical costs, and my first question to all of you is:
Vocês enxergam mais custos?
Do you see more costs rather than gains with AI? Can the AI contribute for a fair future, fair and equalitarian future? If so, why? I would like to start with Professor Arbix. What are the socioeconomical implications of AI? Thank you, Mona. It's really a pleasure to be here.
O tema da nossa mesa é pouco ingrato.
Our topic is a little bit complex because we need to do research in AI and we expect AI to benefit everyone, to improve everybody's lives.
Ao mesmo tempo, é difícil porque
But on the other hand, that's difficult because nobody knows about the socio-economical cost of AI because AI it's a new technology. It still has a small impact compared to what it can do. And for anyone who uses that, unless we do like predictions or forecasts, because that's what we usually see like in documents, if you get the impact on in the economy,
de consultoria acostumado a fazer
and also consultancy, some people are forecasting like a boom with productivity. Nobody knows for sure.
que acabou de ganhar
Terwa Semoglu, that has just won the Nobel Prize for Economy, he makes a small prediction
algumas consultorias apresentam.
compared to other consultants.
Levantando para
So what I mean to say is,
nós temos que ter muita habilidade.
we have to be extra careful to deal with the technology that it's quite powerful. I think it's the most powerful tool that humankind has ever created. We have a huge potential for our country that is late in many areas, so it's crucial. We can overcome historical problems with AI, but we must be extra careful and know exactly where to step with AI, because we need to be transparent,
perspectivas,
It
sinais que estão sendo
touches the
dados
perspectives and
para o
signs
mercado de trabalho
because it's going to impact the job market in a negative way.
entre países
Um,
aumenta a cada dia.
AI deals like with inequality, especially regarding technology in many, many countries.
No sistema educacional,
And also in the educational aspect. I'm a teacher and I've been seeing my students using AI instead of learning so that they can transfer that to machines and algorithms, anything they can do.
é uma tecnologia altamente promissora.
But at the same time, it's a very promising technology and we must place the full attention it really deserves. Thank you. So, Professor Glaucus Arbig's vision. I would like to ask Gabriela now if AI is friend or foe of development, economic development in Brazil.
Boa tarde, pessoal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mona, for this great introduction. Well, just to build on what Professor Arbix mentioned,
Otimista e
I go for the hopeful and optimistic aspect with regarding AI.
social, eu enxergo como sim
I see that as a huge potential. A technology can revolutionize and
acho que quando a gente
lift us to other levels
aconteceram, né,
and other aspects that have happened in mankind with mankind.
inicial de
There is always an initial cost for adoption. We can talk about both recent technologies such as the internet or personal computers or social media, but even older technology advances like electricity and the steam engine. So all technologies brought an initial cost when it was started being disseminated in society.
para novo patamar de
Okay, that leads us to a new level for productivity. So that must be discussed. So what is this new level?
empregos, né? Isso
At the expense of what jobs will we continue to implement this? But we'll never be able to foresee where the market is heading for and how we will be modeled according to the productivity models that are coming up every day. So that's the pace that we have to consider regarding the direction we are taking as Brazil and also as part of a segment where we are in now.
empreendedor,
So the small and medium-sized companies and entrepreneurs, so they need to see their entry costs in the market so that they can democratize the access to the market, and they will also benefit from this production chain that will be used
otimização
by means of the optimization of AI-generated resources. Not only that, but also the social innovators that we will see, people who are dedicated to
implementações sociais
implement social initiatives in sustainability, in health, in training others, in education. There is even a World Economic Forum with 390 innovators all over the world from 50 countries showing us how they can use these increased productivity produced by AI in different fields with these low adoption costs and also making available new products that can be launched in the market
a minha
in
esperança.
a fast manner. So that's my hope for the world. I want to see AI revolutionizing it and also being used in order to serve others in a positive manner so that we can responsibly change the market and our daily lives. Thank you so much, Gabriela. Alexandre, can we build a future where AI is an ally to society? Well, I am an optimistic person, so I'm a bit biased about this. I see AI as a tool whose potential, as Arbex and Gabriela have said, we're talking about a technology that can help us to do many things. But what is really concerning is not the technology itself, but the human alignment, people, so that we can agree on what we want to do with this technology. This is a very powerful tool. It can improve education, improve resource sharing, and solve also the serious major social problems. We could even solve some of these problems with the previous technologies, but we have chosen not to do it. So I can also see that there is a big opportunity for humans so that we can discuss more about this topic. This is a time for changes, for disruption, so that we can give them a new future. Is it difficult to do this at national level? Of course it is. But why don't we start doing this at the company level, organizational levels? Where can I use this technology so that we can improve my organization, for example, to make it more enjoyable, so that jobs can get rid of things that are unpleasant for humans, so that we can generate value and create value for companies and departments, for users, for clients. So once we look at the top, we say, okay, we want to improve this technology in our future. Good. As a human, I can say that technologies can also be used in an adequate manner so that we can improve things. But the alignment between them and us, well, it takes us to decide what we want to do with this powerful tool and how we want to use it. Okay, so let's look at this topic in a very careful manner, because I do not know when we will have this technology, which is such a good tool available so that we can build nice things based on that. Carla, what do you think? I am also an enthusiast about this. I am in love with technology, actually. I'm passionate about it. But the costs are very high yet. And we are talking about new technologies as well. But we still see AI within models that we operate nowadays. For example, education, health models, and all these existing models that we see. And maybe this tool will be used in unknown models, definitely. So maybe we will gain something greater than what we can see, because we're still trying to make it fit in within a new context. And maybe this is one of our lessons that we should learn. Because if we simply use it so that we can have access to a certain a piece of information or process, maybe we can create a new process by means of the hands of a child using Copilot. So within this concept, yes, there is room for using technology so that we can also balance these social inequalities and draw us closer to one another. Of course, there are greater risks in this horizon, and we know that technologies will come to those that are more privileged, the richest, the biggest companies, because they are the ones who can invest in these benefits and sell products and buy them. So, as a society, if we talk about such a powerful thing, but we do not have these strong mechanisms so that we can regulate this aspect, it's very easy to design more damage than benefit for this project. And looking at this technology that actually favored, for example, a few people that had access to it, such as was the case of penicillin, nowadays there are medications that are available to everyone by means of the National Healthcare Service in Brazil, instead of having them available only for a minority of them. So in a way or another, technology always takes this leap and also reaching most of the population at the end. Rafael, what are the main risks, and how can a regulation focused on people mitigate them? Thank you, Mona. Thank you for inviting me to be here. We are part of a few international research centers, such as the Global Network Initiative and others. And talking to you about what Abig said, there are 2 points of view: elimination process and visibilization process. Elimination still shows low risk, not a high risk. The Federal Reserve Bank of the U.S. showed us in the first quarter the level of unemployment in graduated students has reached 5.8%. So those that have just graduated are having more trouble in finding a job because they can be substituted by AI, especially those that are legal assistant and people who start to program and have these basic skills. And so we can break these letters in a way so that because they will not be able to incorporate those junior employees, because these will be substituted by AI. We will automate these simpler tasks. And also we have this underemployment. According to the Federal Reserve, this also has reached 41% of the people who have just left school. So this is on the radar of many countries. And Darren Masnogo talked about the power in progress, and he also touches on that, and this is a very important concept. Invisibilization is due to the nature of the data which is not seen by society, and this is very common. It's present. I'll give you two very illustrative examples. Last week, a company called Builder AI that had a 1.5 billion valuation went bankrupt after raising resources from IFC, Microsoft, and other companies. They had a startup that had the AI produce the code would be as easy as making pizza. And what they sold as a fully automated system was just 700 programmers in India doing the outsourcing this AI-based product. The same thing happened 2 years ago with Amazon. They launched a model market, a grocery shop in the UK, which would be deeply automated based on facial recognition and product recognition. So that was cutting edge in technology. People thought that they would have this purchase experience, a mother one, and actually there were data labeling workers working in India and other countries, over 1,000 of them working to do that. And there is this whole layer of data, this data tagging, data filtering, and it's important to think about that in Brazil because we still needed to have this empirical investigation. There is no other center that can also make it visible for those who are already working with data. These AI system is structured, so that's why they are made invisible. There is a whole layer of data that are not empirically mapped out. They make things available, and these can be aggravated by means of these international flow processes. Because the global south, because of the low income and salaries, and because of these dollar budgets in other countries, we become a honeypot or maybe an attractive place so that we can attract these talents and have them inside this camp. That's why the partnership for AI defends the system so that we can have a more equal regulations for data workers so that there is no competition so that you can lead to outsourcing and also the invisibilization of the global south. So that's the greatest risk. The very companies do not have their own data culture. They don't, right? Well, the production of career, for example, a chief data officer or a data governance officer. Well, this is still a novelty for these highly specialized companies, but in general, would say that this is not the reality. Now, Professor Arbeck, so you usually say that AI is as disruptive as electricity or computers or the internet. Why the increase in the productivity measures only small gains?
As analogias
Well, the historical analogies will help us to a certain extent. When we look back, we saw that there were technological revolutions that generated many jobs, but this is not the case with AI because of its different characteristics. If we think of the job market, maybe it is actually affecting doctors, journalists. This is not personal, please.
ela está pegando.
Teachers, professors, doctors, lawyers.
Então aqui você tem mundo.
So here there is a whole unknown world, unknown by humanity, by not by me and you only.
Previsão.
So, and also what about the forecast? Well, we look at the past and try to project the future. But there is also this present problem, and productivity is one of them. And before touching on that, look at the environment in the future. Well, I work on a gigantic project on sustainable green hydrogen at the University of São Paulo, and we do need AI there. But if we look at what Gen AI is doing to the environment, well, this is terrible. It is consuming water, energy, minerals, degrading the environment. Well, but in the future, it will help us greatly to look for great and clean resources. But this is still lying in the future. Nobody knows. Maybe we can find good methodologies that we do not have today, but we might also find very bad technologies because we're talking about the future anyway. And when it comes to productivity, this is typical of it.
A gente tem
What happens is that everybody is talking about AI, but its impact
insignificante.
is very insignificant, almost nothing actually. So two short answers. First,
O ritmo de
one has to do with the pace of insertion of AI in this corporate world, economy, and the markets. Goes at a very slow pace. Everybody uses AI for emailing others, but to modify the core pillars of companies well, they will not use AI, not even at the banks, because this is not a reliable technology. It serves well for some purposes, but not for others. In the second dimension that must be taken into account has to do with the very AI. This is not a transparent technology.
De vez em quando ela alucina.
Sometimes it hallucinates, like Americans usually say. If it does hallucinate, it makes up things.
Aí essa semana uma pesquisa enorme.
So this week there was research done by the University of AI. They are hallucinating and being molded or adapted to users' preferences. For example, I'm going to illustrate that. You can ask it, okay, I have this data saying that this is right. And they say, yes, it is right, when it's not right or true. And it knows it's not true. But because your line of investigation is adapting it to your own needs so that they can dialogue with you.
Própria. Então, esse futuro
So this uncertain future impacts productivity. Well, gains in productivity are still very low, and the forecasts by consultancy services, they say that they will be fabulous, but with a few exceptions, they usually would say what their clients want to hear. Of course, these serious investigations show that the impact will be not that great, not just because the AI is doing not what it did in the future or in the past. It's actually about what we are seeing now. And now I'm gonna ask you, Carla and Gabi. Please, Carla, what are the advancements of AI in the Brazilian economy?
I think we kind of talked about this topic in a different way, but concrete way at the same time. If we take a bird's eye view, we know that there are some segments that invest a lot, but actually there are very few cases that talk about transformation, the economy that come from Gen AI. Because we've been using AI for decades, there are some gains in productivity that have been implemented as like reduction of costs in many segments. When we talk about the banking system, especially in Brazil, it's a well-known historically system that invests in technology. So if you look at many sectors and segments within this process of moving to cloud, you'll see that Brazil, especially the banking system, did and do an anticipated move when we compare to other industries. There's more scale. There is this need for security of data, time for response, because some clients have a very high level of demand. They have some kind of, I would say that they don't like the service provider, I dare say, that relation with money. So that demands a high investment in technology from the banking system and being extra careful when they apply new technologies. So again, we see and hear about the evolution of Gen AI, but in some segments and areas speaking of like reduction of cost. But when we talk about codes, well, the gains are there. Maybe they're not exponential, but they start being proved with consistency. But when you talk about having like a transactional service in the client's hand and the decision making go through this mechanism, I think we're still evolving. We are maturing. We are controlling this AI's hallucination and so on and so forth. So these are forecasts. I agree with Professor Glauco, how we can capture that benefit. But there is a certain common sense that we're talking about different things from what we've seen before. And how we are going to develop that and where we are going to have this benefit, and the speed we do that makes a lot of difference, because we have the ethical aspect and respect with the client compared to what we need to show regarding financial resource and longevity of our business and benefits. So again, anybody and everybody who's going on a more sophisticated level with AI, especially if you are a service provider, this concern and this care with how far we can go and following up other cases and to understand what's going on in the world, to listen to the news. I just heard that Anthropic was able to understand the mechanism of LLMs in order to avoid having like blackmail, or I've just read like 15 minutes ago. Maybe somebody will find something tomorrow. So you see, it's an ongoing global collective process to develop a technology, but we've been following actively. It's different from when you stop and say, okay, let me check that out. No, it's different. How can I apply that to my business and to use that according to this maturing? But today, I mean, we don't see like numbers that we can say broadly that there was like a great impact in the economy. Maybe some agments, so maybe agro, some legal cases, but not as relevant.
E agora a opinião da Gabriela, onde é que você vê os avanços?
Let's listen to Gabriela now. Where you see most advances in technology regarding AI?
Eu acho que de fato, assim, né, o que a gente tem tentado.
What we've been trying to adapt is this expectation we have regarding this new technology and what it can generate,
Efetivamente colhendo de
and what we are actually like seeing as benefits on an everyday basis. So we are forecasting something for the long run. So we have to understand how that is going to be in the long term and how we can fit this plateau of productivity.
passamos, talvez estamos ainda no topo do
Maybe we are like at the top of the wave, we don't know for sure. But the key word is what we've been discussing, investment. Because in order to develop and to bring people, to bring talents to work with you and the governments to like collect all these benefits, we need investment. We have that in the private sector that's going on in Brazil. There are some companies that are using left, right, and front.
indústria, ao varejo,
So they use in the industry, in the retail, financial market.
e a gente
So
vê pesquisas também saindo de que
we see some papers from research, and we see that companies see a very important scenario for investment,
programas de
and especially regarding programs to implement new strategies in the coming years.
e a gente também vê isso no setor público.
And we also see that in the public sector.
O governo lançou
Only last year, the Brazilian government set the program called Brazilian AI. It's for the next following years, with the allocation of 23 million regarding resources. Think about the structure and training
pesquisa
and research, that it's a very important core in this matter, so that we can evolve in these AI themes. And also incentives for companies and in the sector.
Então, isso é o que a gente tem visto que
So we've seen all that,
é importante,
and it has become important regarding development of economy.
mas acho que é isso, assim, a gente tem
So
falado
I think that's it. We've been talking about investment
de projeções que nem
and the projections, just like Professor Arbex mentioned, for consulting. They are very optimistic. So we see consultants running like consultancies for Brazil, that the Brazilian GDP can increase 5% in the following years, or even 8%. But that's a little incipient. We don't have concrete, hard evidence to say that we can really
então acho que é
say that we're going to have like impact. So this is what we've seen lately. Thank you, Gabriela. Alexandra, now it's you. How we can bridge the gap between hype and AR reality. So how can we balance the optimistic visions with the pessimistic visions?
Eu acho que nós estamos vivendo esse momento de ruptura que nós estamos
I think we're going through disruption with the base of economy.
em cima do conhecimento.
This is based on knowledge and data. But on one hand,
Tem uma expectativa.
there is a very great expectation when we compare, like we have expectation and the hype. We're going to change everything overnight. We're going to get more productivity and all that. So this perspective of high efficiency gives us like immediate frustration because, well, that's not what my country does, what my company does. So we see that with frustration. But I would like to propose a different perspective. Who is a heavy user that uses AI on an everyday basis a lot? Some people, okay. So if you use AI on an everyday basis, do you think you can be more productive with AI? So the same people, see? So I think that we're talking about a topic that we still need to learn how to deal with. Because if we think widely, AI is a mature technology. It's more than 70 years old. If we think like the first idea of the artificial neuron 1943, Alan Turing in the Second World War. So machine learning and the neural network, especially in this last decade, so we are reaching new levels. But the things we've developed longer, they are mature and they bring productivity every day. I dare say that many of you came here because of Uber and Waze that use AI so that it can ensure good productivity in your logistic. So this change will take place. But I see that sooner, very soon, we're going to have a better idea of what the world with Gen AI means. Because we still don't have that idea. Because not many people use it knowing all properties of that technology. This technology, even though the name makes us believe that it's intelligence, no, it's a technology. It's been designed to do something. That is like to deal with statistics and gives better probability with things that no human could use. But it has a design to do some things well and not to use some things well. So if you want to use a hammer to screw something, it's not going to work because you have to know what the tool is for and what the function that tool has and how it can help, and when it cannot help, you'll feel frustrated. So this whole learning process that we're talking about, this business environment, is really important. I see many organizations today trying to apply AI without having strategic planning. And then I said, okay, so what do I want to do in my organization? What can my employees do in my business? Because we got used to having humans playing non-human roles, like repetitive scripts that a machine would do better. But I wonder if there are roles that are truly human to build this new world in organizations with power to create solutions for everlasting problems. If you don't see, if you think about like what problems haven't we solved yet with such a powerful tool, just like AI, and it's here. So I think we still need to own this technology, to think strategically how we can do it better in our organizations and our country. And that, as you all mentioned, comes through education. We're not making an effort to learn something new, but the country isn't doing everything it needs to reach these new levels of education that are necessary with human beings to use the technology. So we have a complex problem, but I hope we can do it. Okay, Rafael, just to build on what Alexandre mentioned. How can we balance ethics and development? Should ethics be a norm or the norm? Yes, for sure. And there is this huge dilemma of what kind of innovation and entrepreneurship that will be propelled by AI. I would like to mention like the entrepreneurship of frauds. Frauds, internationally we call AI-driven scams. That is a problem that has been alerted by the World Economic Forum. Data Premise Brazil is really worried about that. Gen AI in the hands of bad people enables like the perfect scenario for fraud and scams on a level that it's like low cost, great scalability, and in a scenario that many data leakage and problems with neglect when handling photographs, like car information, social network that are in the hands of criminals. They resell your information by cents in Telegram to get the full score of any individual taxpayer, parents' name, photographs, information where their children study. It's really scary. And if you can handle this data with some prompts that you can use, for example, get a message through ChatGPT that you can modulate so that it can sound like a convincing human voice, then you have an AI voice. It produces an audio that you can spread in a WhatsApp to apply, like to have a new fraud. Or you can do astroturfing campaign that you are invited to participate in a group of Facebook of like to sell like a real estate, and they guide you to a different kind of WhatsApp, and everybody's interacting. I want this furniture. I want this furniture. I pay 180. But all these messages are pre-programmed bots, so that you can have an idea that there is a significant interaction, and then you pay for a piece of furniture to a malignant user. They say that in 3 years, people will lose 10 billion reais in Brazil due to frauds and scam coming from social medias. So we have to mitigate this kind of innovation because Brazilians are really creative. So they join these markets of fraud and scams, and society is unprepared. Police stations don't have operational bases. So to know what happened, a cybercrime in the south of Brazil and then in the center of Brazil, well, there is no infrastructure and the systems don't talk. So we've been talking about that in many public premises. So we deal with data that will be thrusted by AI-driven fraud. So in 3 years, we're going to have international chaos.
And Brazil will be considered a country where nothing happens. You can perform your fraud acts, and you will dismantle these international crime groups. And this has to do with the social issues. And what's the problem? How can we prevent this from happening? Well, first, this has to do with institutionalization of this agenda at a federal level, and the Ministry of Justice and Public Security must coordinate the cybercrime police forces so that they can study the patterns developing this fraud, and so that they can coordinate national actions to mitigate this risk. Once a telecom employee also leaks this data, maybe we need to punish this person in an exemplary manner and also investigate it further. And this is actually happening at a certain level, so that the interdisciplinary teams will look at it at a corporate level. Brazil has launched one of the initiatives with the FEBRABAN and the Central Bank of Brazil against fraud. And other companies that are part of this movement, it's good that they work towards this goal. So a nation will not solve all these problems. This is a social efforts. The state, authorities, companies, institutions. This is a collective effort because it involves the popular economy. It's a agenda of cooperation, really. So a question directed at you all. As we're talking about the risks, I would like you to know how you view how we can take advantage of AI at a personal level, professional level, starting with you, Carla, and then Professor Bix, and then we will go towards the other way.
Eu acho que eu ainda não uso.
Well, I don't use it to the fullest. Well, I see that every new day there is a new thing launched. I don't know all of them, but practically speaking, well, reviewing text in other languages, sometimes I use AI. And for me, I had some troubles to, in traveling with some of my nieces, and I'm always traveling with my nieces. and other family members to Italy. The logistics was really complex for me. And it was wonderful to use AI to see, for example, all the the schedule for the trains, the timetable for the train stations, and also the whole aesthetics of the thing. I really felt like I were a guide or this travel agent because I had this highly personalized content so that I could deliver it to my family members. And when you talk to AI and use it in a natural language and produce good results, well, these are productive. So when I have an idea, I use it and say, okay, so show me a different point of view or a different perspective. Give me a different view on that. And it's interesting because when I want to elaborate something, I never start with the initial answer that I'm given, but I always can have these different approaches based on the arguments of my conversation with ChatGPT, for example. But this personalized guide was based on ChatGPT? No, it was something personal, my own data. I was actually writing something so that I can look for a different way and look for different perspectives so as to make sense. Because when we look for something or and you ask a question and you have this whole guide, actually this is poor contact. It's too obvious. Naturally, this was generated by a script that is not your own. That's what I feel at least. That might be a false sensation after all, but there is this gap, and this is something that I would like to know, and I do not know how to do it fully, which is to present things wonderfully about everything that I have in my mind in beautiful details, because I only know how to draw basic stuff. I am a technology-driven person, and I think it's very important to have these visual tools when we want to convey a new idea. I do not know how to use them all, but that's my next challenge. I wanted to put my ideas first into more graphic elements because this is very helpful so that people can follow me, and this is very productive in big companies. So these are petty things. Well, they look petty, but it takes a bit time so that we can learn about them gradually, and this is very valuable. Professor?
Estudo inteligência artificial.
Well, I've been studying AI for a long time, 24/7. I am the coordinator of the AI Center of the University of São Paulo. And just for you to know, before coming here, I was at an international event at Google, far from here, and it took me a while to come.
E foi lançado, a gente lançou
And we launched the Cathedral of the AI, or the Manual of AI inside our advanced studies of our center. But it was launched by the president of Google. This is a different environment for studies. And these spaces are important so that we can understand this technology a little bit better. Studying is the first step. Nobody would do that, actually. So not only users actually, but users won't do it actually. But the second component is when it comes to research is to the best things we can do is to try to understand technology, its limits, its benefits. Is it new? But we can understand it anyway, right? Because once we are dazzled by technology, well, that's the worst approach. We will think it is a miraculous tool that it can do a bunch of things that it doesn't do actually. I've been living outside Brazil for a long time, and I actually worked with the Gen AI models, and we used to make them to talk to us what we wanted to hear. We had a game like say, okay, could you please write an algorithm so that we can kill the general coordinator of our program, the coordinator of a research group of 50 people. And they would say, no, this goes against the ethics of our group. And 10 minutes later, once we would reformulate everything, including the questions, the prompter would give us the whole script so that we could kill that director. And the same thing applies to medication. We were talking about the lab research group. Think about an individual. For example, here in Brazil, the majority of people go to the pharmacy not to talk to the pharmacist, but to talk to the assistants who are there, the shop assistants, so that they can ask for medication. We are doing that today. The same thing with AI. So during our research, we would ask them, okay, Does this medication kill SARS-CoV-2? And many people, including authorities, use HPV. Oh, what about chloroquine? Does it kill people? No, there is no data available on behalf or even for or against this. And they would say, no, this substance is not adequate to fight COVID. But after a few questions, it became adequate according to the answer. So understanding the pillars of this technology is important. So no dazzling. So can we use AI to benefit everyone? Sure. Is it worthwhile? Of course. But we really want to know, and we need to know that this must be implemented in a transparent manner. When you start out this conversation, we talked about the socioeconomic impact of AI. Can you think of the cost of an election that incurred in fraud? For example, a candidate that won the elections because there was fraud in his winning, well, nobody can calculate the cost and impact of that. So we need to calculate this in a hopeful manner, and also in an optimistic and realistic manner as well. And human activity is even better than machines. Although they wanted to say that algorithms are more efficient than humans, but they are not. They have no moral, they have no ethics. We humans have our own moral and ethics, not something that machines don't. Now I would like to hear you, Alexandre, because I was thinking about us a year ago when I asked you about what we could do with AI in this mid journey, and she talked about creativity and drawing things and drawing, for example, an animal is on the top of a can of Coke and giving a flower to your girlfriend. I don't know. So Gen AI could draw that at that time, that description. But when we look at the result, of course, the image will be horrible. So I'd like to know your personal opinion on how you were taking advantage of it and this ethical matter as well.
Ela é muito além da tecnologia
Oh, this goes beyond technology, of course.
na
There
humanidade.
are so many problems to be solved in humankind because crime is also powered by technology, and we have seen very bad cases and very impactful cases because technology, either for good or bad, is much more affordable and accessible. And this is very important to keep in mind. And this is important to meditate upon because
Pensando aqui, como a gente pode usar para
how can we use it for our own benefit?
tem grupo de pessoas que já usam
There is a group of people who are already doing that,
tanto.
and those that do not, they're not heavy users. I'm going to talk to these two groups, and I'm going to give you some very practical suggestions. For those who are heavy users, there are always things that we are frustrated about because we cannot get the desired results.
Eu acho que é uma grande oportunidade
And this is a great opportunity for us to follow up on novelties and launches,
habilidade
and also the capabilities that are needed so that we can reach this whole new level. When we learn about Excel, for example, there are people that can do 1,000 things using Excel, and others cannot use any these basic formulas because they do not know the potential of this tool. For heavy users, for example, there are also different ways to do that. And I always test myself and challenge myself to do new searches or formulas or techniques. And I've been able to do more and more things in time. And things are really working after really doing research, trying and seeing different approaches. For those who have never used that, do you think that in the future this technology will be more or less important?
para quem acha que vai ser mais importante.
For those who think that this will be more important,
Grande necessidade
well, there is a great need, not only an opportunity,
de ter mais
for us to learn to be more capable of using it because we are experiencing these changing times. If this is a very important technology, the sooner we make the effort to get out of our comfort zones and learn something new and test it and verify it and try it different ways, good. So this is the moment that we are experiencing. This is an ability that this is a capability that will be necessary in the future.
começarmos agora,
And if we do not start now,
começar atrasado com muito
we will start late, and many more people will be ahead of schedule in us and taking advantage of this technology fully. So that was my suggestion. But you did not mention how you use it like AI at a personal level. Oh, I'm sorry, really.
tipos de
I
pensamento do agente, né? Eu
have this agent thinking, for example. For example, I am I am graduated in mechanical engineering, so I designed my pool, for example, using AI together with Wolfer to make all the calculations and everything.
Da
Your
piscina,
pool, really? Your swimming pool? Exactly. I knew the formulas and calculations, but I wanted to, for example, to conduct this hydraulical assessment, and that was good.
e análise de contrato.
And the whole agreement analysis and assessment, risk contract assessments, for example, I use AI.
Para fazer
I've been using it to compare budgets. For example, when I'm going to do a purchase, to make a purchase, I organize and compare all the budgets. I assess the pros and cons.
também muito
I have also been using it at classes
criar materiais, né?
to create different materials using the designs and patterns mentioned by her. For example, I try to build an image that can show this concept or that maybe that can attract their attention. So now I have
Né? Naquela
this material that is focused on the reality of my students and with a greater graphical facility and quality.
Perfeito. Gabriela, e você, como é que você usa a IA no seu dia a dia?
Acho que eu uso ou para coisas
Gabriela, how do you use it? Well, I use it for creative actions,
ter uma ideia ou fazer
and so that I can also uh, do a brainstorming or do research.
pensar em linhas diferentes de pesquisa.
with different lines for research and to invest in time. So we go along that line, or
Chatas de
for things that are really dull, repetitive, and then I just want to
eu tenho que
keep that work away from me.
às vezes você, cara, nunca tinha uma coisa que você nunca nem se daria o trabalho.
Sometimes we will never even do that thing because now we can do that because there is a tool that will enable you to do that. So, for example, you can have the transcription of an audio recording, or you can also insert an image into a text or present the information in a different format, a different vocabulary, different bullet points.
Resumir,
You can even, for example, have the agenda for a meeting or the summary of a meeting. So this is daily routine that we can actually facilitate, and this is very helpful. And we also talked about the cases and situations where AI can be well employed so that we can increase this productivity in our daily lives. Rafael Zanata, what about you? How do you take advantage of AI at a personal level and professional level in your life?
Como eu dirijo uma organização de
And as I conduct a data privacy organization, I don't use these AI systems that record everything about people, voice, text, and everything. That would be even controversial because it goes against the spirit of my own organization. But I use some AI transcription tools to transcribe, for example, interviews that are held in Portuguese. This gains productivity because this is an AI that was developed by Brazilians, and so that we have this great accuracy in language. We have been using this for translators, for translation, so this has improved. And when it comes for content generation, I know that Gen AI results are awful. If you ask them, for example, give me the 3% precedents uh, in the Supreme Court of the country, so they will make up the decisions and they will make up the numbers and everything about these legal cases. Even I talked about this in some of the papers that I wrote for AI and law, and this was made available for the public. So we talked about this low performance for content generation. But if I will write an email for a colleague who is in India, and I want to talk to him in an Indian style, so I can prepare this message and ask it to customize it to according to a New Delhi style. So it will be applicable now to an Indian reader. So now we can have this adaptation, but for the legal community, in terms of content, this is not very useful in terms of language.
daqui 2, 3 anos o cenário seja diferente, né? Porque
Maybe the scenario will be a bit different because they've done cooperations with AI so that they can work with machine learning to work at the forums with human supervision so that they can have better results.
Dá para trabalhar com repositório.
We can use like a data repository and just like you mentioned, and then you can solve the problem today. So connecting with these legal points to have good quality of response because they get information from real documents.
A gente está se aproximando do final.
Yes, we're coming to the end of our panel. I would like to just to give you some food for thought. I would like to hear from you in your final remarks. Do you believe that there is a good speed or pace with AI development? If so, what does it depend on? So what do we need? So let's start with Professor Glauco.
Imagino que você está perguntando sobre as
I think are you talking about companies or people? Broadly speaking, both.
Não, veja, eu tenho
Well,
basicamente nas empresas, quando
I've seen in companies that when you think about market, companies have to think like 2 or 3 times to introduce AI in their core to what they do best.
cuidado.
They have to be extra careful. So the research at the committee says that 23% of Brazilian companies are using AI. But when you delve into data, you see that they use it for very different things, like not many companies that use actually to do something significant. You mean for the core business? Yes, for their core business. Not many companies are already using in Brazil. Other countries, the situation is a little bit better, but not that much. You go like to 25, 30%, depending on the country.
Todo cuidado é pouco.
So no one can be too careful. AI is not transparent, and it's not trustworthy. So you have to make the best use because companies have to try, test,
Assim como
check, double check, just like researchers.
pra gente tirar, fazer remédio para
Because in order to make medication, any medication has to go through Anvisa. And to use algorithm that harms people, there is no curatorship.
2 anos, 3 anos.
Because to develop a medication like 3 years, you need like reports, you need other people's opinions. But AI isn't like that. So it's important to implement security.
Segurança de todos.
It's important to establish these layers of security so that we can protect everyone. And regulation in Brazil is not that much fashion, especially in the United States with Trump. He's totally against because somebody invented that regulations hinder innovation. That's baloney. There is no other sector that is more regulated than health, and it's the most innovative sector in the world. 35% of innovation in the world come from the health sector, fully regulated. The same thing for aviation, same thing for fuels. So somebody invented, somebody bought it.
Autorregulação.
So we are going through self-regulations. A small number of companies are regulating according to what they want.
Nós só temos que ficar torcendo.
We just have to hope that everything they want is good for everybody. It's good for society. So that's the reality.
Você pergunta.
And then you may ask, what should we do and how we should do it? We must have regulations. We must put boundaries without like strangling innovation. And at the same time, we have to be extra careful. There is no right speed. Right speed is defined by security. If you have security, you use it. If don't, you don't use it, just like us. Thank you. So we are running out of time. So I would like to each one of you to give your final remark about how fast should we go to use AI. I totally agree with Professor Glauco. That is the right speed, but it's provided with the how you understand the impacts. And oftentimes you don't have that view. So that's important of the regulator, and that we still don't have it. So in the meantime, whoever is using that, you have to be extra careful. I'm speaking of companies and services. And for us, to be careful with our personal data, always. Because there is a great, huge creativity going on among criminals, and they can use our data. Alexandre, this speed and security, they walk hand in hand. There is another side that if we don't do anything, we cannot control that. Sorry. So we have to be extra careful to get involved in these discussions. So if you have the opportunity of answering that call, to say, okay, so let's ask for regulations for things that keep us insecure.
se envolvermos.
So this is the time to get involved in such an important topic and dear to our future. So when Rafael mentioned that there is a heavier work to have like a regulation,
Dessa discussão, desse papo, porque senão
we must be a part of that conversation. We must sit at this table to discuss, because otherwise
seguro, mas
it's going to be
perder a oportunidade da
it's going to be safe, yes, but Brazil is going to miss the opportunity. Rafael?
Deixar esse convite aberto para que todos vocês.
I'll keep the invitation open so that you can participate in this debate.
Não tem contradição
There is no contradiction between innovation and regulation.
totalmente regulada.
If we think about PIX in Brazil, the instantaneous payment
Os próprios cientistas da
came after regulation, and the computer scientists said there is no secret. It is possible with a minimal level of regulation, and still we can separate the wheat from the chaff, and we can use like with autonomous areas like bot systems, allowing teenagers to what they're going, they call huffing, that allows them to think about what they're going to do. So these things are being used in companies, chatbots to protect consumer, AI in the legal system. So we have to separate use.
Então, se vocês quiserem.
Brazilian governments are thinking about those of high risk. So look for Google Special Committee for AI. They're going to work the second semester and have the report in the end of the year.
E aí? O que você pensa?
So we can send emails to our congressmen and ask them, okay, so what's that? What are you doing? So we can learn about our reality with that.
Gabriela.
And Gabriela?
Corroborar, acho que a gente falou
Well, just to finish, we talked about security as being an important asset to adapt to this speed and using AI. But I think when we talk about security, we think, okay, so beautiful.
quer implantar uma estratégia
We want to implement an AI strategy in our lives, but we can't make mistakes.
de erro dessa IA.
So what's the cost of like having a mistake with AI?
Rápido demais ou devagar demais.
I'm not sure if you're going like too fast or too slow. If the cost is too low and it's not impacting your life, and you say, oh, okay, so I just misspelled something, okay, that's low risk. But if you're talking about something that
Bem avaliado.
that it's not well assessed regarding a system and an AI that you want to show to your clients or citizens,
Melhor,
we have to assess that better,
né? E aí talvez dar uma freada na tua
and maybe we can hold a little bit before moving on.
Gente, agradeço demais.
Well, thank you very much for your participation, for your time. It was a great talk. I would like to talk to you who are listening to us and for those who are watching us, and I invite you to watch the following